recording. And yeah, I'll just have a couple of
Yep, I've got
questions
that.
and that'll be it. I don't want to take too much of your time. I really appreciate you rearranging your schedule to meet with me right now, and I know
You
that
take you take as much time as you want to take. My time is your time. So don't
thank
worry about
you.
that.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm so excited to hear your story, and I know my students would be as well, and the community at large would be gifted to hear what you have to say. So I'm so excited to be doing this interview. So thank you for your time. To jump right into things, I was hoping that you could start with how you ended up moving from the United States to the UK in the first place.
Okay, how did that happen? Um, when I graduated from university, the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, I made a decision to move to West Africa. Now, the reasons behind that are many and various. But when I was growing up in the 1960s, my father and mother um, were the host family for a student from the Cameroon who was studying for his master's degree and his doctorate degree at Wake Forest University. And in those days, it was prohibitively expensive to think about traveling between North Carolina, the US, and
Mm-hmm.
Africa, Cameroon. So he basically called our home his home during the school holidays and summers. So I kind of grew up with a big brother from
Yeah.
West Africa. So I decided after I graduated, wouldn't it be fun? So I took my degree and went to find my fortune and fame.
I love that. That is an awesome way to be traveling the country and traveling the world. That's awesome. Well, the next step, how did you end up meeting the Queen and how did you end up in your next steps of being appointed as Her Majesty's Lord Lieutenant, Miss Peaches Golding? How did you end up here?
Okay, first a correction. I am now His Majesty's Lord Lieutenant
There you go.
because when Her late Majesty died, our role seamlessly moved over and now we support the King.
Got it.
So in West Africa, I met my darling husband, who is from Bristol, the city that I live in now. And eventually we came to live here. I had a small business. It was very unusual at that time in the 80s for Black women, Black people, to be trading on the supply chain of very large companies. We call them blue chip companies, companies that might be listed, for example, on the stock exchange. And I
Mm-hmm.
had a couple of customers like that. And it was the King and his people who were thinking about why is it that so few Black businesses are on the supply chain of our major companies. So they asked me to do some work with them. And for about 18 years, I worked with our now king when he was the Prince of Wales on a
Mm-hmm.
program called Business in the Community, which helps large companies to understand their corporate responsibility. Now, the legislation in the UK is very different from the US. So we don't have supplier programs that are geared to help minority businesses trade with large companies.
Yeah.
So we don't have any legislation like that. But the king now felt that it was really, really important to do some of that work. So I worked alongside him for many, 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 many years. As I said, 18 years. And I got into this role, slightly complicated. I got into this role because my role is the personal representative of the king. So that means that when the king is not in the county,
Mm-hmm.
I carry out all of the responsibilities and I do all of the administration and receiving and accompanying members of the royal family when they're here in the county. So we are selected by a really British way of doing things. We retire on our 75th birthday, a known date, and the Privy Council arrange a consultation in the county. Now, the Privy Council include the king and senior members of the royal family. They are private secretaries, the prime minister of the country, and senior civil servants. That's all crazy language, perhaps. But they ask two questions, two very simple questions. The first question is, what's going on in this place? And they'll ask military, religious, civic, health, business, charities, a whole range of people. They say, so what's going on from your perspective? And people will have their views. The second question that they ask is, who's best placed to lead the county through that transition? And names are discussed.
Interesting.
So the Privy Council will make a recommendation to the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister will then make a selection between the two or so people that have been presented to them. And the Prime Minister will recommend to the King that person on the basis that they will voluntarily do work for the Crown for that 10-year period. And I was selected. I am the first Black woman in history to have this role, which was created in about the 1540s by King Henry VIII. So it's really, really quite significant. Yeah. I am the third minority ethnic person ever to hold this role.
Wow. Wow, that is an incredible story. And I know I just learned so much. So I know my students should be taking notes and very much appreciating all that you just said. That is incredible. What an accomplishment. What in this accomplishment, in this role, what does the Lord Lieutenant do? You said that it was that when the king is absent, you fill in for those spaces. Is that pretty much what the job description is, or do you have a lot of other work?
Okay, I have a lot of work. I do 12 to 18 things a week, every week. Wow. So I've got some slides that will illustrate that. So here we've got our king and queen, and he, King Charles, is our head of state. He's the head of the Commonwealth, and you see a description of the Commonwealth there. He's defender of the faith, which means he's the head of the church. And he has a number of other roles. So let's see what I do on a day-to-day basis. Let's see if I can make it go the other way around. You'll have to excuse that. Let me see. It's not going to do what I want it to do. Let's try this. Okay, haha, that's me in my uniform. So that's what I look like when I am carrying out my role. So it is the uniform of an army general. The only difference being that the silver bits that you see on my uniform are in gold for an army general. I wear 3 medals, and you can see 2 of them. Are you still there?
I am. Are you? I think that we lost some.
I wear 2 medals. The star around my neck, that's the white bordered one, is commander for the Order of the Most Venerable Order of St. John of Jerusalem. It's an order of faith and humanity, and I'm the next but one highest possible level in that order.
Wow.
Then you will also see on this photograph, Queen's Platinum Jubilee Medal. And my other medal I'm not wearing at that point, but you might see it later. And the great thing is I have a sword as well.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So what do I do? I've got 4 cadets that attend me, and every year I get, oh, you'll see the other medal there. Okay, so you can see the red medal with the gold emblem on it. That is my order of, well, it's my officer of the most excellent order of the British Empire. Wow. So that's that one, and you can see the hilt of my sword there. But anyway, I've got 4 cadets that attend me, and they will do anything that I ask them to do during the year. So when I have a royal visit, they will do that. When I have some other significant activities, they will do it. So here you can see me in my uniform with the gentleman there is the Duke of Gloucester, and we are doing an engagement for the Order of St. John, as it happens. And you can see just to my behind me, you can see my cadet. And so I'm introducing His Royal Highness, the Duke of Gloucester, to various people in a lineup of dignitaries. So my cadet gets to do that. And I guess in Bristol, we have 10 to 12 royal visits a year. During Her late Majesty's reign, attended the Platinum Jubilee celebrations that were held in St. Paul's Cathedral in London. That was absolutely fantastic. And although Her late Majesty was not able to attend, you can see from that picture, what an amazing location St. Paul's Cathedral is, and how many of us were there. And yes, we wear our hats when we're in church in the afternoon, just like you would. When she died, I took time to go out and meet people that were coming to lay flowers. This is the cathedral in Bristol. And I met many members of the public when I was there. It was a thing called Operation London Bridge, and that was our code word, so that we did all the things that we needed to do. And this is the proclamation. So 2 days after the death of Her late Majesty, a proclamation was read to tell everybody in the nation that the Queen is dead, long live the new king. And it was a moment of celebration. And you can see me there in the coach, which is the proclamation coach. Bristol is one of 2 locations in the United Kingdom with a bespoke proclamation coach. And on the red boarding, where you can see a crown insignia, you will see Charles III also written. It's a bit obscured by the flowers, but I'm standing there addressing the general public. And this particular event took place in hundreds of locations across the United Kingdom and Northern Ireland at the precise same moment. Really, really amazing.
Yeah.
This, I went up to the lying in state. You may have seen some photographs of that, but you can see in the front at the bottom left-hand side, you can see me walking out, having passed where the Queen was lying in state, and having been able to observe all the things going on. And you will see the beefeaters are the men in costume on the lower level. And the men with the white ostrich plumes are the Queen's personal bodyguard, the gentlemen at arms. And then the others on the upper steps are, again, members of one of our armed forces.
Interesting.
But it was very, very interesting. And then I was able to attend the funeral of Her late Majesty. And it was absolutely the most incredible thing I have been able to attend ever. And you'll see on top of the casket the flowers, but you will see the crown. And that is the crown that when we have the coronation in a few weeks' time, His Majesty will wear. And you can see the orb, that globe-shaped emblem, which signifies the king ruling, and also the scepter, that very long staff. And it was just the most amazing thing to be able to do. I take part in ceremonial activities here in the county. So this is Remembrance Sunday, when we lay wreaths for those service people who have died. I'm there with the Lord Mayor of Bristol. She's in red. You can see that I've got my sword. I've got all my medals on. I've got my red poppy on, because that is the way we commemorate. And we are just about to receive our wreaths from these young people over on the right of the screen, and we will go and lay them. And after that, there's a very large parade, and I will stand and take the salute from all of the armed forces as they walk by. I inspect, because the king's first role is to protect the people. I will inspect the troops, and you'll see that the president of the United States does a similar thing. You can see me in my little pink jacket, attended by one of my cadets in the Air Force blue uniform, and I'm walking along the ranks of assembled service people. The brown colors are Army, the blue is the Royal Air Force, and the dark blue on the second row, and also the person just in front of me, are Royal Naval. I'm an honorary captain of the Royal Navy, so sometimes I am seen in Royal Naval dress.
Fascinating.
As defender of the faith, the king is the head of our church, and this, you can tell, was taken back during COVID, and we were celebrating the end of the Second World War, when it was in Japan. The last of the fighting had come to an end, and the girl that's standing there in the red dress with the rest of us boys and girls, she's carrying a Japanese flag, and it is the flag that was on board a submarine which surfaced, and each member of the crew signed their names on that flag, and her grandfather is the owner of that particular memorabilia. So it's just, yeah, absolutely amazing. And here I am with the king. We have receptions in Buckingham Palace, and occasionally it's my pleasure to be invited to take part in some of those. And I'm introducing the king to a number of business leaders who have received a Queen's Award in those days. They're now renamed the King's Awards.
Wow. You do a lot.
I do a lot.
Yeah.
We have investitures. So I can do an investiture up to a knighthood. Again, that's one of my cadets there with me. And I'm about to award to the gentleman standing there a national honor.
Nice.
I just last week or a couple of weeks ago, when we had the beginning of the Lunar New Year, we had a lot of our Chinese students at university performing the lion dance. Wow. And I'm there with let's see, on my left is the High Sheriff. She's got a little blue ribbon around her neck. The Lord Mayor is on my other side. The Chinese woman is the director of the China National Tourist Board. And then her assistant is standing there with us. So yeah, I have just the most amazing time doing the most incredible things.
It really is very incredible. I mean, you sound busy at all times, but everything you do sounds incredible. So I'm excited just hearing it. I have to ask, have you ever used your sword? Do you use your sword?
I use my sword for a number of things. I use it if, for example, I have to do an investiture for a knighthood. That's very rare. Most people would go up to the palace. But if for any reason the person awarded that knighthood is unable to go, then you've seen the ceremony where you tap on the shoulder using the sword. Mostly, I use my sword to cut cakes.
Really?
So when I attend receptions, so I'm going to a reception tomorrow to mark the 40th anniversary of a particular organization. And there I will cut the cake using my sword. And there's a great technique that we use. We'll cut that wedge shape, and then we slide our sword underneath, and we flip the slice of cake so that it sits proud on the rest of the icing of the cake. So it's really quite what can I say? It's quite crazy.
That sounds crazy. That sounds awesome. I'd love to see a video. Did you have to practice that flipping technique?
Well, no, it just comes with confidence. It comes with confidence.
I love that. I love that. And I have a question. The next question's about local action. Is there an issue that you worked on that you believe is an example of how local action can make a difference? Has there been some local issues or local communities you've worked with that you've seen have a big, more national or even global impact on policies or communities?
Well, now that's interesting because one of the things that we cannot do is get involved in political matters.
Mm.
There's a very fine line between how the king rules the country, and one has to be very, very, very careful. So the king, for example, will meet once a week with the prime minister and discuss a whole range of things.
Yeah.
The king will go and, like he is later this week, he will go to France because the government will ask him to do those sorts of things.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to have initiatives with political involvement. So we steer very, very clear of that. The role is non-political, apolitical. However, there are things, for example, the very first slide that I showed you had me couched down in front of a tree. And so last year for the Queen's Green Canopy, we nationally had a campaign to plant trees. And so we planted over 3 million trees across the United Kingdom and Northern Ireland. And here in Bristol, I was able to get designated an ancient forest, one of 70 ancient forests. And I was also able to get 2 trees that were part of the ceremony at Buckingham Palace given to community groups here in recognition for the wonderful work they do with old people with less privilege and less access to opportunities, and all of the work that they are doing. So my powers are limited. I have 3 powers. I can encourage people, I can advise people, I can warn people. I use that last power very, very sparingly, but there are times, as in the past week, I've had to, just do a little bit of suggesting that someone may choose to do something other than what they plan to do.
That is fascinating and a little scary. I had to move because the other room I was in was getting noisy. But one second, let me pull up my Okay, can I restart this Zoom in a second? I think that everyone's moving out of this office.